Welcome to the deep dive. You've brought in some really fascinating sources today, all tackling possibly the biggest question there is. Is the universe just running itself, or does it, fundamentally need a creator?
It's the ultimate question, isn't it? And these sources, they really cover the gamut: cosmology, philosophy, even biology. What's clear is that getting absolute knockout proof either way, well, that's elusive.
Right, so our mission today isn't necessarily to find that proof, but more to dissect the arguments. Look at the logic for and against needing a creator based on what you've given us.
Exactly. We want to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each view. See which framework seems to offer a more, let's say, comprehensive fit for everything we observe.
Okay, sounds like a plan. We'll start, I guess, at the beginning, the whole first cause idea. Then there's the fine-tuning stuff, which is mind-bending.
Definitely. And then what does autonomous universe actually mean? We'll look at that. And crucially, the origin of life and morality. Big topics.
Huge. All right, let's dive in. Section 1. Does the universe need a beginning, a cause? So first up is the cosmological argument. The Kalam version seems key in these sources.
It is. The logic is straightforward. 1, whatever begins to exist has a cause. 2, the universe began to exist. The Big Bang points strongly that way, plus laws like thermodynamics.
Okay.
3, therefore, the universe must have a cause. And that cause, logically, would have to be itself uncaused.
The first cause, often equated with God. It makes a lot of intuitive sense, doesn't it? Cause and effect, it's how we see everything working.
It absolutely aligns with our everyday experience. But here comes the immediate problem.
Yeah, but what caused God? Question. The infinite regress process.
Exactly. If everything needs a cause, why the exception? The theological answer is that God is different. God didn't begin to exist. God is necessary, self-existent, eternal.
That's where the naturalist argument comes in, calling it special pleading.
Right. If you allow one entity, God, to be uncaused and eternal, why can't the universe itself, or maybe the quantum vacuum or whatever preceded the Big Bang, be that fundamental eternal thing?
The ultimate brute fact.
Precisely. A brute fact is just the end of the explanatory road. The thing you accept without a further why. Is the ultimate brute fact a mind? Or is it the physical reality itself? That's a core choice.
Okay, hold that thought on brute facts, because the design argument, the teleological one, seems like a major challenge to just accepting the physical universe as is.
Oh, absolutely. The fine-tuning argument is powerful. We're talking about the fundamental constants of physics: gravity, the strong nuclear force, electromagnetism.
The basic rules of the game.
Yeah, and they are tuned to an absolutely astonishing degree of precision. If they were off by, minuscule amounts, life as we know would be completely impossible. No stars, no planets, no chemistry.
The sources mention Roger Penrose's calculation for the universe's initial low entropy state.
The odds against that specific state arising by chance. Penrose put it at 1 in 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123.
Okay, my brain just refuses to process that number. It's effectively zero chance, right?
It's astronomically small. So small that it really forces you to consider if chance is the best explanation. It feels, as you said, like the game is rigged.
So how does the autonomous universe side handle that? How do you counter that level of apparent design without invoking a designer?
2 main ideas come up constantly in these sources: the multiverse and the anthropic principle.
Okay, the multiverse. Infinite universes, infinite chances.
Sort of. The idea is, if there's a vast, perhaps infinite number of universes out there, each with different physical laws or constants generated randomly, well then, by sheer probability, some universes will have the right conditions for life.
But doesn't that just kick the can down the road? What creates the multiverse generator?
That's a very fair criticism, and it gets debated. Perhaps the multiverse operates under even more fundamental laws, or maybe it's the brute fact. But often, the multiverse idea is paired with the anthropic principle.
Ah, okay. This is the we're here because we're here idea.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
It's about selection bias. We shouldn't be surprised to find ourselves living in a universe fine-tuned for life, because if it weren't fine-tuned, we wouldn't exist to observe it in the first place.
So the conditions don't need explaining because our existence presupposes them.
Exactly. It reframes the fine-tuning from, wow, what are the odds, to, well, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation.
This talk of constants and laws brings us nicely to the whole concept of an autonomous universe. What does that really mean?
The word itself comes from Greek auto, self, and nomos, law, so self-governing. The idea is that the universe runs according to its own internal, consistent laws without needing ongoing external intervention or control.
Like a clockwork mechanism, which is an idea that really took off during the Enlightenment, right?
Precisely. 17th, 18th centuries. You had figures like Newton describing these incredibly precise mathematical laws governing the planets. It led to this view of the universe as a perfect machine.
And Laplace famously telling Napoleon he had no need of that hypothesis, meaning God, to explain how the solar system worked.
That's the classic quote. Science was showing how things worked based on inherent laws. But it raises a deeper question. Okay, the clock runs, but where did the laws themselves come from? Who wrote the rules?
From a theistic perspective, that seems straightforward.
Yes, the theist would say the laws are descriptions of the consistent way God upholds reality. They reflect a rational mind and intention for order. The laws aren't things in themselves, but descriptions of divine action or decree.
Okay, and the naturalistic explanations for the origin of these laws. The sources suggest there isn't really one settled answer.
No, there isn't. It's a frontier of physics and philosophy. You get a few main ideas. One, the laws are just the ultimate brute fact again. That's just how reality is at its most fundamental level. Stop asking why.
What else?
Two, maybe the laws we see emerge from deeper principles, perhaps related to symmetry in physics. Noether's theorem is a famous example linking symmetry to conservation laws. So maybe there's a more fundamental reality from which our laws derive.
Interesting. And the third?
Three, they could be, in a sense, random. If you buy into something like string theory, it suggests a vast landscape of possible physical laws, maybe 10 to the 500 different sets of rules.
Wow.
So perhaps our specific laws were just randomly selected in our corner of the multiverse.
So the big question then, can nature really organize itself without guidance? We see complexity everywhere: star formation, snowflakes, weather patterns.
And science, or methodological naturalism, operates on the principle that yes, it can. Its job is to find those unguided mechanisms based on the known laws. Think of how a snowflake forms. It's just physics and thermodynamics, no guiding hand needed for each crystal.
But the counter-argument from the theistic side is that even if the mechanism runs itself now,
The existence of the mechanism itself, the laws, the initial conditions, the kickstart, still points towards an origin, a creator. The focus shifts from how it works to why it exists and works this way at all.
okay, let's shift from physics to biology. The origin of life, abiogenesis. This seems like a massive hurdle for a purely autonomous, unguided universe.
It's arguably the biggest complexity challenge, yes. How do you get from non-living chemicals to the first living, replicating cell? Now, science doesn't propose, a fully formed cell just popped into being.
Right, it's supposed to be gradual.
Exactly. Step-by-step process. We have evidence for the early steps experiments like Miller-Urey in the 50s showed that amino acids, basic building blocks, can form naturally under early Earth-like conditions.
Okay, so simple blocks can form, then what?
The leading hypothesis then moves towards more complex molecules forming, like RNA. This leads to the RNA world hypothesis.
Why RNA?
Because RNA is this really interesting molecule. It can store genetic information like DNA does, and it can act as an enzyme to catalyze chemical reactions, like proteins do.
Ah, so it can potentially do both jobs needed for self-replication.
That's the idea. Maybe RNA was the first molecule that could replicate itself, eventually getting enclosed in simple membranes, forming protocells. That's the broad scientific sketch from chemistry to biology.
It sounds plausible when you lay it out like that, but the sources raise some major objections. The chicken and egg problem.
That's a big one. In life today, DNA holds the blueprint to make proteins, but you need specific protein enzymes to read the DNA and copy it. They depend on each other. So which came first? It's a tightly interwoven system.
And this ties into irreducible complexity.
Yes, Michael Behe's concept. He uses the bacterial flagellum, that tiny outboard motor some bacteria use, as a key example.
Because it needs all its parts, like 20 or 30 different proteins working together.
Exactly. The argument is, take away any one of those parts, and the whole thing doesn't just work less well, it doesn't work at all. It stops being a flagellum.
So it couldn't have evolved gradually, step by step, because the intermediate stages would offer no survival advantage that wouldn't function.
That's the core of the irreducible complexity argument. It suggests such systems must have been assembled all at once, which points away from gradual, unguided evolution and, for proponents, towards design.
Science is still working on finding plausible evolutionary pathways, looking for simpler, functional precursors.
Absolutely. Research continues, proposing scenarios where parts might have had other functions initially. But it's fair to say the gap between complex non-living chemistry and the simplest conceivable self-replicating life is still enormous. It remains a major point of debate.
Okay, let's shift from biology to, well, us. Consciousness and morality. If the universe is just matter and energy following laws, where does objective morality come from? The moral argument.
A very powerful argument from the theistic side. It claims that our deep-seated sense that some things are truly objectively wrong, like torturing children for fun, doesn't make sense unless there's a transcendent source of moral value, a moral lawgiver, God.
It appeals to that gut feeling that right and wrong are real, not just opinion.
Precisely. Now, the naturalist response comes in a couple of main forms. First, evolutionary psychology.
Morality as a survival strategy.
Essentially, yes. Cooperation, empathy, fairness. These traits help groups survive and thrive. So, our moral sense could just be a highly developed evolutionary adaptation. It feels objective because it's so deeply ingrained for survival reasons.
Okay, what's the other angle?
Social contract theory. We figure out, through reason and agreement, what rules we need to live together successfully. Ethics are derived from human needs and social agreements, not from a divine command. You can be good without God.
But does that really account for the objective feeling? If it's just evolution or agreement, isn't it ultimately subjective? Could we have evolved different morals? Could society agree on something truly awful?
That's the philosophical challenge back to naturalism. Can you get genuine objective oughts from purely descriptive acts of evolution or social preference? It's the difference between this harms the tribe and this is inherently wrong, always and everywhere.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground: necessity, design, laws, life, morality. Before we try to pull it together, let's quickly summarize the main reasons people argue we don't need a creator. What are the key points from the sources?
I think there are three core pillars. First, and maybe foremost, is the explanatory success of science. Historically, science has consistently provided natural explanations for things previously attributed to the divine lightning, disease, planetary motion. Invoking a creator is seen by many as stopping the scientific quest for natural causes, a god of the gaps.
Makes sense. What's second?
The problem of evil. This is a huge one, both logically and emotionally. How can an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good God coexist with the sheer amount and seemingly pointless nature of suffering in the world? Think natural disasters, devastating illnesses. Many find this incompatibility insurmountable.
A major stumbling block.
Yeah.
And the third?
The fundamental lack of empirical evidence, at least in the way science typically demands. Science relies on testable, repeatable, observable data. By definition, a transcendent, potentially non-material creator falls outside that methodology. There's no lab test for God.
Right. So given all these arguments and counter-arguments, where does that leave us? It feels like we've shown that both viewpoints, theistic and naturalistic, can be defended logically.
I think that's exactly right. That's the crucial takeaway for you, the listener. This isn't really a battle between logic on one side and illogic on the other. Both worldviews are internally coherent, starting from different fundamental assumptions.
So it comes back to that idea of the brute fact.
Yes. If you lean towards the theistic worldview, you're essentially accepting the brute fact of a mind, an eternal, necessary, intelligent consciousness as the ultimate foundation of reality. The complexity, the fine-tuning, consciousness itself, objective morality, these are seen as strong evidence pointing to that foundational mind.
And if you favor the naturalistic worldview?
Then you accept the brute fact of the physical universe, or perhaps the multiverse or the underlying laws, as the starting point. The power of science to explain how things work is seen as sufficient, and the problem of evil often acts as a significant barrier to accepting a traditional creator.
So science tells us how the universe operates, but the question of why it exists at all, or why it has these particular properties, that steps into metaphysics.
Exactly. Science describes the workings of the clock brilliantly. Metaphysics asks why there's a clock in the first place, and why it's this kind of clock. Hashtag outro.
So we've explored this deep tension. Is the universe a created cosmos imbued with purpose from the outset? Or is it an autonomous cosmos operating on its own laws, where meaning is something we create or discover?
It really boils down to which starting point, which brute fact you find more compelling.
And recognizing, as you said, that this is fundamentally a metaphysical question, not purely a scientific one, seems key to having an honest discussion about it.
Absolutely. And that leads us to the final thought we wanted to leave you with. Since both the naturalistic and theistic frameworks can be constructed with logical consistency, the choice isn't necessarily about finding logical flaws in the opposing view.
Okay, so what is the choice about?
It's perhaps about asking, Which foundational premise, an eternal, self-existent physical universe, or an eternal, self-existent mind or God, provides the most satisfying and comprehensive explanation for the totality of our experience? Not just of the physics, but also our reason, our sense of morality, our consciousness, and that persistent human search for meaning. Which framework makes the most sense of everything?
A powerful question to ponder. That definitely gives us all something to think about.